If you're a runner and you're injured, one of the big questions is, when can I get back running? In this video, I'm going to go through my 5 rules for returning to running after an injury, and hopefully they'll help you with your decision of when to lace those shoes up and get back out there. Hi there, I'm Rowan. I'm a sports therapist, a UK athletics running coach and a keen fellow runner myself. I see a lot of people who come to me with running injuries, and one of the big things they want to know is, when can I get back out and run? Now, the answer is often sooner than you think, but you do have to be smart with it, you have to be sensible, and you have to have a bit of an idea of what you're doing and why you're doing it. In this video, I'm going to be going through 5 general rules that will help you come to that decision of when to get back out and run. Not just that, but how to do it and how to minimise the risk of that injury returning. So let's get straight into it with rule number 1, and that is, don't jump straight back into where you were before. Jumping straight back into running, into your training where you left off, is the biggest reason for rehab plans to fail. It's a really common thing amongst runners to do a boom and bust cycle, and this is where an athlete gets injured and then they sit around doing not much at all for an extended period while the injury recovers. They then think the injury feels okay, so they just jump straight back into training at the volume, the intensity they were at the start. And this just doesn't give the injury time to recondition itself to running. It doesn't give the rest of the body time to get reconditioned to running either. So what tends to happen with this is either the injury just recurs after another week or so, or they end up picking up another injury, and this results in another bout of extended rest and recovery for them, never getting back into that consistent training. Now, a reconditioning period doesn't need to be too long. It may only last a couple of weeks, and doing this, building it up gradually, starting off easy, progressing gradually and slowly, and building back up to where you were over a number of weeks, is going to give the body that impetus to heal. It's going to allow yourself to get reconditioned to the stresses and strains of running, and it's going to help build up some robustness there instead of breaking yourself back down to where you were at the start. And this long-term kind of thinking is going to be much more effective than the perceived short-term gains of jumping straight back into your training where you left off at the beginning. So, rule number 2 is that you don't always have to be completely pain-free to return to running. It is natural to be scared of jumping back into running when you've got a little bit of niggling pain there, and it is definitely sensible to wait for the acute pain of an injury and any inflammation to settle down to manageable levels before you decide to have a go at running. However, it is not always necessary for the pain to completely disappear. Some tightness, stiffness, a bit of low-level pain, maybe a bit of a dull ache, these are all part of the natural healing process. And as long as you don't push so hard that the pain flares up to uncomfortable levels, then you can often work through that minor pain. By following some simple pain management guidelines, you can reintroduce some running sooner than you may think. If you want more information about running and exercising with pain, then you can check out the article that I've linked in the description below. There's an article and an infographic there about how to manage your pain. But the general idea is, manage your training, manage your running around the pain levels that you're constantly monitoring. If the pain gets too high, if you start being uncomfortable when you're running, or it's changing the way you walk or run, changing your gait, then that's probably too much. If it's just a little bit of a dull ache, a bit of stiffness, bit of tightness, then that's generally okay. Now, there are obviously exceptions to this, so if you're not really sure about what to do, then I do suggest getting professional advice on that, but we will be covering that a little bit later in the video. Now, on to rule number 3, and that is, test it out. You can come up with a detailed and well-reasoned rehab plan, but until you actually get out there and give it a go, you don't know how it's going to feel. You don't know how the injury is going to react to running again. The important thing to remember here is that you are allowed to do as little as you want to do, as little as you need when you're testing things out. Many runners feel like they haven't gone for a run unless they've done 5k, maybe 10k, or if they've gone hard at it. But when returning from injury, you're not running, you are rehabbing. You're rehabbing the injury rather than training. And there's nothing wrong with taking baby steps there. Now, every injury is different and everyone reacts differently So if, for instance, you had a mild injury that kept you off the road for a couple of weeks, then you can maybe get out and try a couple of miles. But if it was a more serious injury that maybe kept you out for a month or more and your pain was a little bit worse, then it can be a case of taking it really easy. And what I often suggest in these situations is just go for a walk, but wear your running gear. And in the middle of that walk, maybe a 20-30 minute walk, just try a 3 minute run, a 2 minute run, and see how it feels. At least then you know what you can do, you know how it feels. If you monitor the pain in the next 24 hours following that little run, then you know where you're at, and then that will inform the next stage of your rehab plan. You can then manage the progress on how it felt. Too painful, and you might need a little bit more time for recovery. But if it felt okay, either pain-free or just low levels of pain, then you can look to progress from there in a sensible way. Rule number 4, and that is to work on other aspects of your running. You may not be able to do your full training volume or intensity, so this is a great time to develop a more well-rounded training regime. It's a perfect time to add in strength training. Strength training is great for building robustness towards future injuries. It's great for rehabbing your current injuries, and it's also good for performance in running. Working on mobility can help address any restrictions in your movement, and this is also a great time to look at doing drills and technique work to improve your running form. This is another way of making yourself less susceptible to injury and at the same time improving your running performance. Working on all these different aspects around the running, working on all these accessory exercises is a great way of keeping up that running training, improving your running, making yourself a more well-rounded athlete, as well as giving you a big psychological boost. If you're out there doing something and working towards that goal of getting better at running, even if you're not doing much of the running itself, you're going to have a really big mindset boost, and that's just going to help with your motivation, that's going to help with your recovery. So the 5th and final rule is, if you are unsure, get some professional advice. All the previous rules are really good general advice and they apply to most situations, however they are not set in stone. As with all general advice, there are some conditions and some stipulations. In some circumstances the rules can be broken and sometimes the rule might not apply. For this reason, if you are concerned at all about how to get back into running, especially if you're still feeling pain, then you will benefit from seeking professional advice. My main advice here is look for a therapist that understands running, preferably a runner themselves. That way they will be able to relate to you as a runner and they will share the same mindset. And they will be keen to get you back running as safely and as swiftly as possible. So thank you very much for watching. Those were my 5 rules for returning to running. I'd love to hear what you think, so if you do have any questions or comments, please let me know and I will get back to you on those. If you want to see more content like this, then you can subscribe to my YouTube channel, give my Facebook page a like, and you can follow me on Instagram. And until the next video, have fun running and I'll see you soon.